Let's talk about death!
Tout suffocant et blême quand sonne l'heure, je me souviens des jours anciens, et je pleure. Et je m'en vais, au vent mauvais qui m'emporte, de ça, de là, pareil à la fouet morte.
Hey everyone, it's Travis, the Pagan Scholar, here with another episode of Tarot and Poetry. That lovely French beatnik excerpt that you heard at the beginning was the tail end of Chanson d'automne by Paul Verlaine, and basically it's just a very stereotypical French poem about autumn. Yes, that is humorous. I thought it would be kind of funny to start that out with a very stereotypical image of death. However, the death card is actually kind of awesome, and I'm totally ready and excited to tell you about why it is awesome. For the death card, I decided to drink Ghost Pines. It's a red blend. It is 56% Sonoma County, 30% Napa County, 14 San Joaquin County. I'm so sorry. I'm so bad saying foreign things unless they're French. It's a pretty good, I don't know, I think it's fitting for the death card. So cheers, let's get started. So, as Binabel explains in Holistic Tarot, the contemporary indication for key 13, death, is that of transformation and metamorphosis. Done. Like, I don't even have to finish this video. Actually, I do, and I shall. However, crap, where did it go? The veil and mask of life is perpetuated in change, transformation, and passage from lower to higher. The card depicts the end of a phase or stage in the seeker's life and the beginning of a new one. The death card is about change, and change is generally uncomfortable. Sister preach. Yes, we are all quite afraid of change. I think it is not that far off to say that we are all kind of afraid, or if not afraid, at least a little bit worried about death, because nobody knows what happens afterwards. We all have ideas, but anyways, that is not what the death card in tarot is about. The death card in tarot is about change. For once, my interpretation of death and the standard interpretation of death lines up perfectly. There really isn't that big of a difference between my understanding of death. I've been called calculated and cold and callous and other negative words that start with C, but death is not necessarily a bad thing. Death can sometimes be a good thing. Death is nothing but a change. Death can be very painful, but death is not always physical, mortal death. It can be the death of a situation. It can be the death of a tyrant or an enemy, or it can be the death of a loved one. However, both situations, the only thing that is constant and similar in between a good death and a bad death or any other kind of death is that change has taken place. So before I get to the poem, I wanted to go over the cards with you. In the Rider-Waite deck we have, where is the Rider-Waite deck? There it is. All right, so in the Rider-Waite deck we've got Death on a Pale Horse, bearing the banner of the Rosicrucian Rose. I've not really looked at the Rosicrucians very much. I have in the past, but I forgot exactly what they stand for. The horse has red eyes, which is kind of, the fear of death. We view it as this, like, kind of nasty messenger, but really it's just death. It's just another change. It's another cycle. But the more important aspects of this card are actually underneath the horse. We have a king, and his crown has fallen off. And right next to him are a child and a woman, presumably a mother, wailing before death, much gnashing of teeth, all of these things, and a pope praying, or a clergyman or someone, praying before death, begging, but the lesson is death comes for all of us. In the end, death comes for all of us. Whether you're a king or a pauper or a priest, doesn't matter, death and taxes. However, in the distance of the card, there is also two towers, which a lot of people say are the two towers of the moon, and rising between them is the sun, the hope, the idea that there is something more beautiful, or at least as beautiful, beyond death. Not a bad card, pretty good. In the Fantasy Tarot deck, we've got this Byronic hero, I guess. It's sort of traditional, but it's got a lot of artistic license. We have this black-clad figure standing in front of a hell horse or a horse of some sort that looks very gothic. And in this marsh or in this wood, we have the fallen beardless youth clutching, or not clutching, but still holding onto his sword. It sort of loses the message of death. However, it's still an idea that death does come for us all in the end and that there is change. More about death, less about change in this card, but it's still there. It gets the job done. It's not a bad card. It's pleasantly, I don't know, it works. And then Night Sun, always throwing us a curveball. We've got a very pregnant and very naked woman. However, she is pregnant, so death can also be interpreted as birth. That is a change. It is a new life coming into being. She is a reaper. She does have a scythe, which is typically associated with death. And there's some Latin on the scythe. I'm going to put it right here because I don't know what it says, and I lost the booklet that did say what it was. However, she's also got, I almost said time turner. She has an hourglass, and her hands are kind of bloody, and she's got a skull mask on top of her face. So there is a lot going on in this card, but I think it speaks much more accurately to death than the fantasy card, because death is about change, but it can also be about life. It doesn't have to be, yeah. So the poem that I wanted to read you, that in my opinion exemplifies death, is by Kathleen Raine. Yes, a British poet, finally. She has written a poem called Change. Change, said the sun to the moon. You cannot stay. Change, says the moon to the waters. All is flowing. Change, says the fields to the grass. Seed time and harvest, chaff and grain. You must change, said the worm to the bud, though not to a rose. Petals fade, that wings may rise, borne on the wind. You are changing, said death to the maiden, your wan face to memory, to beauty. Are you ready to change? Says the thought to the heart. To let her pass all your life long for the unknown, the unborn, in the alchemy of the world's dream? You will change, says the stars to the sun, says the night to the stars. I really dig this poem. Not gonna lie to you, I totally just had to look up poems about change. There were a couple of other poems that I thought about reading, but they're kind of flatly about death and they don't really have a lot of poetic interpretation. I really like this though because it exemplifies the idea that death is not always a bad thing. Death is just about change. It's about transition. There are just a couple points in the poem that I wanted to point out. We have the sun speaking to the moon speaking to the waters, and then she jumps to the fields speaking to the grain, to the grass. So we've got this sort of cosmic idea, like one thing says to change to another, that thing says change to another. The waters and the grasses, they're kind of connected. So we've got that saying change to this. As we go to the rose, and the worm says you have to change. So I could go on throughout the rest of the poem, but change is a chain reaction. It's an event that can start with something very simple or something far, far away in the distant cosmos, and a chain reaction, domino effects, and it comes back to us. That's not necessarily in the poem, but that is something that you can take from the poem. At least that's what I did. There are a couple different instances of using the word change. She says, said the moon to the sun, and then says the moon to the waters, says the fields, said the worm. So that's always something kind of important to pay attention to in poetry, whether it's past tense or present tense. One is concrete. One is something that has happened, it is an event, and it is unchangeable. Present tense, yes, that was past tense. Present tense is always up to interpretation. It's kind of the difference between masculine language and feminine language. That's not exactly what's going on in this poem, but it is something to keep in mind while you're interpreting it. And also, there are different instances. Sometimes it's not what's it called? Also, sometimes when she's saying change, sometimes it's an offer, sometimes it's a declarative statement, and then sometimes she uses it in questions, which are the most important in poetry because questions are asking the reader. They're asking the reader to engage with the poem, which, yes, it breaks down the fourth wall, but this isn't theater. This is poetry, and poetry is much more aloof and mystique than theater. That's right, I said that. My boyfriend's gonna kill me for that. Are you ready to change? Says thought to the heart, to let her pass all your life long. For the unknown, the unborn, and the alchemy of the world's dream. Isn't that such a great line? Yeah, it's just something you have to just kind of admire and just leave it at that. And then the last 3 lines, the last stanza, you will change, says the stars to the sun, says the night to the stars. And that really does bring it full circle because we started with change, said the sun to the moon. The fact that even the sun is going to change, and that even the thing telling the sun that it's going to change, the stars, even the stars will change, says the night. It's this lovely, gentle vista of change, that there is no ultimate perspective of back here or right up here. Change is constant. Change is fluid, says the moon to the waters. You know, we have all these wonderful different elements of change, and it's really nothing to be afraid of. Guys, I hope that you enjoyed this poem and this video and my interpretation of Tarot card Death, Tarot card 13. If you have any thoughts on the matter, please, you know, I mean, we all think about death, we just sometimes run away from it, but if you are like myself and you enjoy Thanatos thoughts, please leave a comment below. I would love to read them. I love engaging with you, and your comments really do help my videos. They shape the next video, actually. So, thank you so much for watching, and as always, merry meet, merry part, and merry meet again.